thank you for joining me for this Coffee with the Editor. I am at the Heavy Haul Association SAHHA conference and exhibition, which is taking place this week. And I am standing with Anneri from Hatch, and she's written a fantastic paper, and she's going to tell us all about it. So you wrote a paper,
Yes.
and it's on condition assessment
Yes.
and the modelling around that.
Yes.
So tell me more.
The first part is to put the problem statement out there. And I think most of our heavy haulers, even transit clients, knows this, that the constant decay of the rail assets and diminishing capacity for clients to move their cargo is on everybody's lips. And we have, over the last couple of years, done quite a few of these asset condition assessments, and we call them risk-based assessments to make sure that we understand the remaining useful life of the asset, and developed a specific model that can help us do that so that the clients have confidence in where they're heading and how can they get some capacity back on the line.
And I think it's quite relevant considering we're talking about a multimodal shift where rail is the backbone. So like getting additional, not just the lost cargo or freight, but additional freight from road to rail, but also looking at it from a multimodal logistics. So not one losing out over the other, but then the rail has to be at a certain level. How does this fit in with that?
I think the first part is to understand the current trajectory of the actual rail condition. And if I say rail condition, it's the whole system plus its subcomponents. So we can talk pit to port, as the conference is all about, from pit to port. It contains all the elements from where you load your traffic, the whole of the rail system, as well as the port and the offloading. So if you look at those various components, they do not all decay, or they're not all the same age. And within that, I think it's important to understand the behavior of the different subcomponents of the system so that you know that you reliably can add capacity or make sure where to put my intermodal facility, for instance, to say this section is the long haul, it's rail, but then I put it onto road so that I can get to clients that do not have access to rail.
So what is the best value? I mean, like doing a condition assessment like that, what is the maximum return on investment a client can have? Because it's not just looking at what's now, you're also doing the future a view. So like maybe you're looking 24, 36 months out.
Maybe even longer, but I think the start of it is to say, if I am a client with freight, I need to get to my clients. And I see that I need to partner and work with a rail operator, rail maintainer. I need to make sure that when I start investing money, because I might have to help invest money to actually improve or to actually rehabilitate a piece of rail. If I want to do that, I need to have confidence. What am I dealing with? What am I putting my money into? And am I getting return on my investment? And I think that is the biggest part where we can help provide confidence to a client that I'm investing my money in something that can really help my business and help the community.
Is this something that you can extend to like multi-partner? So what I mean by that is that if we look at the South African landscape, we've got a call for private sector participation. We have a very strong call from the mining community saying, you know, our current environment is not moving. They're not living up to expectations. They are wanting to get involved, but they're not logistics. You know, mining houses are not logistics providers. But there is an opportunity for the mining environment to work with private sector operators in order to build track, to invest in that rolling stock and that infrastructure. Would this give them more certainty in terms of whether it was a corridor or just a particular stretch?
The key here is to say we must work together as a team, the willingness for everybody to be partners. The second part to that is to actually be honest about the conflicting stakeholder engagements. As a freight owner, I would love to get as much freight to my clients at an affordable cost or competitive cost. If I am the infrastructure owner, I want to preserve my assets. So my maintenance strategies will be to do that. If I am the freight operator, I might have a KPI that says I want to get as much through as I can. And those are seemingly competing, but they all have a common goal, which is getting capacity as was designed or maximum capacity out or even increasing capacity. And I think that's the key, that they have the common goal for that.
Would this add value to like pre-feasibility and bankability studies as a report, the final report?
Definitely.
So how would that work?
So an outcome from a typical condition assessment of the whole of the rail system or even a pit-to-port system brings for you something that says there is this risk that each component or subcomponent of the asset will or will not reach its design life, because each asset has a remaining useful life, depending when it was installed and for what design life it was purposed. And with all of that put together, you will know and have confidence where's your biggest risks. All of that will then help you to say, okay, as partners, let's come together and put our focus and our energy on the first thing that is priority to fix or to invest in to make that better and unlock even more capacity.
Absolutely. So you're talking about risk and mitigating risk, or perhaps not mitigating the risk, but highlighting the risk. How would this fit in with the insurance environment? I don't know if it's common knowledge, but it's certainly out there that insuring anything in the rail environment is problematic from an insurance perspective.
I think that the moment you could put a probability of a remaining useful life of a locomotive on the table and say, given the assessment of all the subcomponents of your locomotive in terms of your maintenance strategies, the actual condition of the locomotive and its use, you will get to a point where you'll say, I have a 90% confidence that this asset has another 20 years on it. That would give an insurer, a certain amount of certainty on what they can insure this for, and the same with the other asset components.
And especially the track, because I think the biggest issue right now is that the track is perhaps not to standard. The train keeps falling off, so now you've got the claim from the track side and the OHTE and everything else, and then of course the train that's now been damaged. If we had to look at the specific thing in terms of rolling stock age. Now, throughout the region, we are 100% aware that most of the rolling stock that we have in this environment is already 50 years old. And I suppose so long as they are overhauling, refurbishing, rebuilding to as new or whatever status, it's okay. But how do you give that guarantee, especially when OEMs are no longer supporting that? Like, I think it's hard to quantify.
You touched a very passionate point that we found in many of our assessments. And that is the one of, I almost want to say how long is the piece of string, but if you have a car, you can have that car last 20 years safely and economically if you replace and refurbish the right thing at the right time. Yes. And the same with locomotives. There is OEM specifications, there's annual maintenance, there's specific predictive things you can put in place. If that is not in place, the life will deteriorate very quickly. But if you put all those elements in place, and it's sometimes complex, yes, because it's got to do with the behavior of drivers as well as how you actually maintain the locomotive. But if you put all of those in place in a pre-orchestrated plan, that life of your asset could easily be more than 50 years.
Okay, so I mean that's quite. It's an interesting topic for me because I'm very passionate about like the IoT condition-based monitoring. I think there are some fabulous tools and technology coming out, but then I also have to be realistic and say this is the state of both our asset as on track and our rolling stock. And, all of these fancy tools sometimes are not affordable, depending on the operator. But we still need to kind of mitigate and manage and stimulate whilst we wait for that investment. And that investment certainty is hard to, give the guarantees. And I think something like this would certainly make the biggest difference.
Yeah, and maybe I forgot to add, there's a specific graph that you can draw in relation to cost to maintain and the life of the asset. And so there is a specific point not necessarily an exact day and time,
but
there's a
point.
period at which maintaining and investing into an elderly asset becomes non-economically viable. And that's the key of when to know to replace or just to keep maintaining.